This is Jay Michaels. I'm a professor of media culture and communications, and I have been clocking science fiction, fantasy, and horror films for over 50 years. And I'm thrilled to bring you some fantastic television here on the Boston Sci-Fi Channel. Now, the Boston Sci-Fi Channel has started from the now 48-year-old Boston Sci-Fi Film Festival. I think I'm correct when I say it is the oldest genre film festival in America and one of the oldest in the world.
Correct.
Thank you. I'm here with my co-host, Jen Bush. Now, Jen is a writer about town. She has reviewed and written about countless movies, plays, television programs, etc., with a focus on our favorite genre. How are you, Jen?
I am wonderful. Thank you very much, Jay. Thrilled to be here.
Same here. Same here. We have a whole bunch of brilliant people with us again. All of these filmmakers have their films running this year at Boston Sci-Fi Film Festival. If you want to go to it in Boston, it's a hoot. You go to bostonsci-fi.com and you can order tickets. And if you can't, guess what? Starting this year, you can log on to the Boston Sci-Fi channel on Filmocracy, and you could see these movies, you could see these interviews, original content, the whole works. Thrilled, thrilled, thrilled. But enough of me. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for being here. Can't wait to hear of the flights of fantasy that you have all created. Let's start at the top of my screen. Diana Porter, tell us about your movie. Tell us why you're here and you're going to shock us.
Our film Subscribed is all about artificial intelligence and the way it's infused itself into our lives. My co-creator, Michael Whistler, wrote a brilliant short story, which we turned into the script, about a woman living alone in her apartment with her trusty AI assistant, Vicky, who's very much like an Alexa or other assistants we all use every day. And Vicky monitors everything in Carol's life, how she eats, how she sleeps, what she does. And you start to wonder, is Vicky helping or is Vicky holding Carol captive? And that's where our movie really takes off.
Wow. Wow. You sparked so many thoughts in me. There was an episode of Tales of the Dark Side series in the 80s that had a haunted answering machine. And the answering machine would call back the people and speak to them. And it was terrifying. And very recently, and this is a true story, I have one of those systems. I won't say which one, but I have one of those systems. And I was in a terrible mood at one point, and the system had said something, reminded me of something or whatever, and I had to stop it or whatnot. And I was in a very bad mood, and I said into it, I said, "Would you just turn it off?" And I potty mouthed at the system. Didn't think anything of it. It's a computer. What's it going to say? I swear to you, the voice on there said, "Do not speak to me like that."
Well, my mother has, since seeing my movie, has been rethinking her use of her virtual assistant and has been trying not to, but she called me and she was like, "Diana, it won't let me stop now."
There you go. There you go. Now let me ask you, because you're right on the finger of this because of your movie. AI, are they getting too aura?
There are some very scary stories coming out. And many years ago, I actually worked in data. I was a data analyst for a major company. And right before I left, we did a data merge with one of our vendors. And my boss said, "Oh, have you had a chance to look at it? What do you think?" And I said, "Well, as a data scientist, I'm very excited to dig into this. As an individual, I'm terrified at how much data about everyone is for purchase." And when Michael came to me with this script, it just immediately hit home. It's something that is so relatable. It's in our everyday lives. Everything is being tracked. Does privacy even exist anymore?
Yes, we're entering the world of the Terminator very shortly. I'm writing a book called Hidden Monsters, and it's about the parables in even the most obscure horror movies. And I'm starting to wonder, I think this is the next one, AI. Maybe we need to look at the Terminator one more time. Maybe I need to find that Tales of the Dark Side episode and watch it again. Because yes, you're right. how much information are we really feeding?
I'll take a robot I could fight with a gun any day over something that is so woven into my life and weaving me into capitalism in such a way that I can't escape it.
Okay, well, you're terrifying me, so now I have to see your movie. And
I aim to unnerve.
Oh my goodness. No, you cannot watch your movie. I'm not letting you. Wow. Okay, okay. Looking forward to that one. Kaylin, tell me how you're going to frighten us with the future.
Hey guys. So my film partner is a short shot on 16 millimeter, and it is about a woman who kind of gives up on love. And so instead she decides to marry her robot boyfriend. Yep.
And that's where the fun begins.
Yeah, exactly. She decides, you know what, like this for me, I'm just gonna get and so I depend on. And then she runs into a guy named Dave who starts giving her a little bit more insight onto what what his take on these robots are.
I'll start with the fantasy element. There was an episode of Black Mirror that had a similar thing where they utilized voice patterns or whatever, so a dead loved one could essentially come back from the grave utilizing computers. So I'm seeing the terror there. And I saw a documentary not long ago, I don't remember exactly where, but people are allowed to marry their AIs, they're allowed to marry their robots. And this is chilling, and this is getting very close. That's 2 for 2. That's terrifying and right outside our door. Wow. Okay. You're both going to be at the event. Yes, you're both going to be at Boston. Okay, we're going to talk because I want to talk about being in my book, because this is exactly what it's about. And okay.
I'm looking forward to meeting you, Kaylin.
We all sit down.
I can't wait.
We all must sit down. And I'm really terrified. So okay. So let's see now. Tina, are you going to shock me into heart attack now also? What's your movie?
Yeah, my movie is also a sci-fi short. How to make it easy to understand. So we have 2 main characters. One of them is Ui. He has a biological imprinted barcode on his arm because the whole society he lives in is under severe.
Tina, you froze on me for a moment.
Oh, what's the name of the movie?
That's it. The AI won't let us know.
I think I stands for intrusive in AI.
Yeah, there you go. All right, Tina, if you can hear me, we're going to come back to you when reception's a little clearer. In the meanwhile, I'm averting my attention to Jeremy. Jeremy, are you going to frighten the hell out of me too?
No, I'm no, so I'm in a little short film called Space Camp. And it's not a frightening one. It's sort of a bye, Tina. It's sort of a little autobiographical in a way, where it's about this young girl who kind of fantasizes about space and being an astronaut, and kind of had her own imagination to escape her parents' constant fighting and yelling. And so she kind of goes on her own little journey out into the world and puts on her fake little astronaut helmet, and she's kind of imagining this grander world that she could be a part of someday. And then ultimately she sort of meets up with a real astronaut. And then they sort of shake hands and disappear, which is intentionally sort of ambiguous. And I've had people ask me all sorts of questions about what the ending means. I know what it means for me, but I've kind of left it vague so that you guys can have your own spin on it and your own, whatever it means to you. kind of thing. It's far more artsy than I am usually known for. I am very much a sort of I'm not a French art house guy, to say the least. So I will say it's a little more artistic than I ever thought I would be. But I'm really proud of it, So
I love the inference of the happy ending there. It's the almost a parable of you can reach your dreams, that you can transcend reality
so
to your dreams.
so that's certainly one take on it. I showed it to a friend yesterday who said, "Oh, so she got abducted." There's a lot of a lot of space for interpretation. But yeah, I think it's a happy-ish ending.
I think what I like most, one reason I love this particular genre, science fiction and horror, horror not so much because horror is horror, is it's so much more open interpretation. It's so much more personal to us. My feeling is, in listening to your story, that this is a happy ending, that this is joyous, that here's a girl from a rough background, if you will, and she is able to transcend her dreams. Almost parabolistically, she's able to fly off into happiness. But others are thinking, was she probed? Did
Right.
get taken
Yeah.
away?
Yeah.
I think that goes by the disposition of it, and that makes it individual for everyone. I think that's great.
Yeah, and I love sci-fi has always had a way of creating conversations, right? And so that's great. And I think that to Diana and Kaylin's point, like, yeah, those things are very much conversations that are happening,
Wow.
maybe less esoterically and more factually in the real world, which is, horrifying.
There is and whenever I teach any form of historical communication, there is a speech that John Kennedy made talking about the space program. And at that point, there was no space program, but he had to keep up with competition, let's just say. And so he created in his head a space program and said, by the end of the 1960s, we're going to be on the moon. And there was no possibility of it when he said it. And by the end of the 1960s, we were on the moon. And I think the notion, science fiction, I think what it does, it awakens our mind. We can say,
Totally.
we're going here, and then we go there. None of you are old enough to remember the original Dick Tracy.
No.
And no, Shane, no. You are not. Anyway, none of you are old enough to remember the original Dick Tracy, and he had a two-way wristwatch. And you have the face on it of someone, and you saw the little lightning bolts like it's talking and whatever. And it was so space age and so cool for the 1930s. And everyone thought, wow, how fantastical. Okay, well, anybody who owns an Apple Watch, let me know exactly what you think about fantastical. So here's to science fiction sending us all, not only your character, but every one of us into our dreams. Tina, you're back.
Hey, it's weird because usually like I want to be stopped off from the Zoom link. So I guess the surveillance still exists in some way.
Yeah, there you go. Quick, before you go off again, tell us about your movie.
Well, so now I will tell it in a mild way because I don't want to be shut down again.
There you go.
So this film is inspired by stories my family told me. And it's experiment to test the idea of relationships that maybe two strangers can find themselves connect with each other by reflections, despite their backgrounds, their identity, or their political stand. Because usually we think like when we see someone, we sometimes like we cannot read what he's thinking, and if someone asks help, we will think about how to like protect ourselves before helping them, unless like they are in the same shoe, they can know how to help each other. So I always like a quote from a Russian, maybe a Soviet Union writer. He said like, love me when we are dirty, not when we are clean. So that's also a part of the concept of the film. And for the plots, probably you guys need to watch it because I feel like it's not the time to share it on the Zoom.
What's the name of
So-
the movie?
The name is Cure, C-U-R-E.
Thank you.
And this is, it's sort of like a sort of an app, a dating app, so you get to know people, you get to know their inner self, if you will.
I won't say it in that way because the relationship is not about romance, but just about how to survive in a land that you don't have much resources. So it's more about survival.
Oh, really?
And how to redeem the redemption from a lost relative.
Interesting. So how do they survive? What mechanism do they use to survive?
So they are under protection from a bigger administration that they believe in a different kind of concept to manage a community. And the prisoner who fled from the surveillance just escape to them and want to be a part of them, but it takes some time to get themselves believe with each other and help each other through the hard time.
Interesting. Okay, the moment you said prisoner escaping, I remember Patrick McGowan's series of the '60s, The Prisoner, and the notion of he was in this village that took care of him, but it was a prison all along. And then we wonder at the end, for those of you who know the series, was it a prison of his mind? And by your vigorous nodding, I'm saying, okay, I see some psychological drama happening from your.
Yeah, I think the concept of prison always be with us since like you said, the '60s. When we have this modern society, we always think like somehow we are molding ourselves to fit in the society, but it might not be a way to live like ourselves, live as our identity.
Interesting. Well, now we're going even further.
But it's just a short film. Like all of these are just a discussion, but not a part of the film.
I got to tell you, it's hilarious. Another panelist at one point mentioned what his film was about last time, and he went into this long-winded, very existential, deeply moving philosophy and everything. And he said, "And my film is 9 minutes long." How do you do that? Oh my God! How do you put it into 9 minutes?
Yeah.
There is the line, "Why come you to prison thither? Prison, my lord? Why, Denmark's a prison." And that's a line from Hamlet. So I guess the notion of the prison of our mind, the prison of our soul, is centuries old. So I look forward to your film. I look forward to see the modernistic take.
Thank you.
Really cool. Really, really cool. Thank you. And I'm glad we got all of it out. Shane, tell me all about your film.
Well, my film is The UFO Girl, and I've always been a fan of films that are based really firmly in reality with maybe one science fiction element. So this film is about a small town in Kentucky that has had a UFO parked above their downtown for like 30 years. And it used to be a booming tourist destination, but now it's become a niche Route 66 kind of thing. But the story focuses on local teenager Nikki Jones as she leads a tour around town, but she's sort of agonizing over whether or not to ask her crush to the senior prom. But the connection between her and the UFO is they've been friends since she was a little girl because she was adopted. So she spends a lot of time sort of expressing herself to the UFO, and it's a form of it's therapeutic for her. So that's The UFO Girl in a nutshell.
That's fabulous, because I can smell the parables on your side there. It's the stranger in the strange land. It's the outsider.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that's great.
Cool. Thank you.
I get the idea from your exuberance itself. It's probably a fun movie. This is not a deep, dark.
Yeah. No,
this is a fun one.
Right. I like films from the 80s are like sort of pop films, just something fun, relatable, approachable. And that's what this film is. It's a nice, fun short that I hope a lot of people can enjoy.
I'm sure. I'm sure.
I have a question. Is it a one-way relationship between the UFO and the girl? Does the UFO does not respond?
No, the UFO has been there for 30 years. Nothing has come out and nothing can get in. So yeah, she's just sort of talking to it. It doesn't respond. So it's just an expression for her alone.
Great.
Yeah.
Sounds fun.
That adds a whole dimension to it right there. Very interesting.
Cool. Thank you.
It stops you from having to create an alien.
Well, so far, like I want to make a feature version eventually. This was sort of a taste of the world that I'm wanting to eventually create. So
I'm hearing a lot of people say that. I'm actually I signed on to do a proof of concept film myself, and I hear that a lot. People say, "This is my short. I'm going to make it a full feature."
absolutely.
Interesting, really ambitious, really smart. Let's see what people think in 10 minutes, and then we'll worry about making a 90-minute film.
There you go.
Very clever. Very, very clever. Good for you. Good for you. I look forward to it. You had me with UFOs. I believe in UFOs. I believe
Yes.
they're out there. The truth is out there. I believe it. The X-Files knew what they were talking about. That's all there is to it.
I'm right there
so
with you.
Good, good. Well, Jen and I will both be in the theater going, see it really, that's really it. So I look forward to your film.
Thank you.
Azia.
Kazuya.
I said it right. There you go. The fact you responded, there you go. I said it right. Tell us about your movie. You're so smart. You have the poster up behind you. Excellent. Tell us about your film.
Okay, my film is Single 8. In the summer of 1978, Star Wars was released in Japan. Hiroshi, a high school student, was moved and started making a movie with 8mm film with his friends. He just wanted a spaceship to appear in his movie. When he learned that the camera had a reverse rotation shooting function, he decided to make it a story about aliens trying to reverse the time of the Earth and redo the evolution of humans. The title is Time Reverse. He asked Natsumi to be a heroine. He was interested in her. She accepted his offer. In the beginning of summer vacation, the shooting was started. This story is based on my experience of my high school days. At the end of the movie, I show Hiroshi's movie in full. Please enjoy it as one of sci-fi movie. Thank you.
Smart man. There you go. You had your whole thing written out. There it is. That's really interesting. That a science fiction film sparked a science fiction film. So I think that's really cool. Okay, time going backwards. It's interesting. It's Star Wars because how does it start? A long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. So that's really interesting on that. Really, really clever. And you said autobiographical. This happens to you. This was your story.
My story.
Okay,
Almost
well,
my
you're
real
old
story.
enough to know my references. Good. I'm feeling better at that. And you have the poster there. Excellent. Really interesting. Why did you decide to do it? Why did you decide to make this autobiographical film?
I inspired by Super 8 by J.J. Abrams and Spielberg. My story is I want to make long time my 8mm film age. Sorry.
Excellent. No, that's exactly right. And now that explains the young lady that is standing behind your poster.
Oh,
I also I have a program on Phoenix FearCon's Roku network, and that's usually horror movies. And so if this was that, I'd understand it because there's some creature that's standing behind your. See, the trick is when I say the young lady behind your poster, you go, what young lady?
she is my wife and
Yes.
he's producer of this film.
He's also your agent, making sure you're saying the exact right things to the camera.
もっと来たらって言ってね。
I was saying a moment ago if you wanted to scare me when I said the young lady behind your poster, you're supposed to say,
違う。
what
Yeah.
young lady?
そういうことしてる。So we wouldn't scare you. We don't like that.
You're going to find it hilarious in about a half an hour. I'm sure of that.
すいません。
I really like the idea that it's personal touch to you. I really like the idea this is autobiographical and that science fiction sparked science fiction, because that's what it's about. We are opening everyone's mind, and you're opening our minds. And to take a trip back to when Star Wars was in its infancy, right there for me, that's something. I remember exactly where I was, the theater, the whole works. I was with my father. He took me to see The Empire Strikes Back, and I still remember, Luke, I am your father. And I stopped breathing when that happened. So Star Wars has a significance for me. And I'm so thrilled that it's now in our culture that way. Good luck with it. And I look forward to seeing it.
Thank you. Thank
Christopher, you have a groovy background. Tell us about your film.
Yes, my film is a short film called Gateway, and it is about a grieving widower named Mordecai who becomes obsessed with contacting his late wife using this fringe science meditation technique. So it really kind of combines these science fiction elements with these kind of weird fiction and psychedelia influences. But essentially, it's about this man's journey through grief and journey inward, using something kind of sciencey, something kind of groovy, to kind of investigate what's going on with him and with his family. And really, you know, I think the central question for me, and I think for the characters, like, well, what would my loved one say to me in this state if we could just talk one more time? Like, how would that conversation go? Would I get out of it what I wanted? Do I even know what I want or what I need to kind of get over this really, really big loss? So it uses these science fiction tropes to kind of ask a spiritual question.
That's really gorgeous. That's really deep. You're asking an age-old question. How many of us, if we could speak to our father, our mother, our grandmother, a relative, a colleague, how many of us would wish for such a moment? So right there, you're tapping into something very visceral for all of us. Really well done on that. You're also, again, we're looking at something, and I'm seeing a lot of it with a lot of what I'm hearing now, even when we're talking UFOs on this. And I'll ask you all of this. Technology. Now my students, when I talk to them about Star Wars, they tell me how cheesy it is. I remember sitting in a theater and thinking it was the most innovative thing I've ever seen. And they're saying, come on, didn't you see? And they're talking about a video game on their phone that has better graphics than Star Wars has. The world is changing very fast. I asked you all, because you're all you're all grabbing at it from the science fiction angle. Is it good? Is it good that we have AI? Is it good that there's the possibility of speaking to the other world? Is it good that we can peer into the solar systems? We have telescopes now that, please, we don't have 9 planets anymore. We have 10, 11, 12 planets because of simply telescopic sight. Is it good that this is happening? That science fact is starting to look like science fiction?
I think it all comes down to, can we be responsible with it? Can we be trusted? I was saying last night that it seems like the irresponsible scientists tend to be the ones with the most audacity. They're the ones who see like, oh, we found this dinosaur DNA, let's clone it. And there's other scientists going, no, that's a bad idea. There's lots of other scientists saying that's a bad idea. They've seen Jurassic Park, they know how it goes. But you have those minority, very ostentatious scientists who are like, no, I want to see a T-Rex. And we need to be responsible, just like all things. We need to use our minds, not just to create, but to keep ourselves in line and think through things before we do them, not behave like toddlers.
Yeah, I think that it seems like a lot of our films kind of have this consideration of like the group, like what is this doing to society? And also what does the individual want? What does the individual scientist or corporation or whatever? Why are they pursuing what they're pursuing? But people have a lot of really deep worries about how it's going to impact the individual. And sometimes individual impacts are a result of systemic impacts, and those things can be really, really closely tied together. So, you know, when thinking about AI or ChatGPT or like Midjourney or how all these things are going to change people's livelihoods, their ability to make money, you know, that's a very individual concern, but it's also system wide. If people are out of work, are we going to start providing them a basic, you know, universal living income or what have you? And then like, you know, in Gateway, Mordecai goes in very selfishly pursuing this reuniting with his late wife, but he doesn't consider the rest of his family or his relationship with his son. So it's like this balance of what I want, what I need, what this is going to do for me versus, well, how is it impacting the rest of us? And technology has always impacted us in really large, sweeping ways, and it's ahead of us. We understand it after it changes us, and that causes a lot of anxiety for folks.
That's really interesting. The needs of the many and the needs of the one, which is another science fiction line. Interesting, very interesting.
And there's also like the unfortunate aspect of like, if someone doesn't do it, someone else will, you know, like, and that's a much bigger thing, like the dinosaur DNA sort of thing of it all, right? It's like, well, if one company doesn't do it, someone else is just going to figure it out and do it anyways. So why wouldn't you want to be the one on the forefront and the one with the acclaim and all that? It's just, there's a lot to unpack.
Capitalism is an excuse for bad behavior.
Right. And yet we do all the time. Right. And then that's like a whole other tier of this thing, back to your point, Christopher, about systems. And yeah, you get into the weeds real quick.
Yeah. And Diana's mentioned several times, our economic system drives a lot of this. The drive for exclusive intellectual property that makes you money, and your ability to lock someone else out of that ability to make money drives a lot of really bad stuff. It just is what it is. I share that observation with Diana. It's not hopeful, but it's real. And if we're real about it, then we can figure out what to do next.
So capitalism is the real great science fiction character in this, because Jeremy, that's a brilliant comment. Yes, if I don't do it, someone else will. So let me do it because I'll do it right. Wow, really interesting on that. Do you think that's? You also bring up the point of we don't learn from it until it's done. Do you think we're heading for disaster now? We just went through a pandemic. We just went through a pandemic that could have been averted if we just watched Contagion and Idiocracy maybe a little closer.
I've been thinking we've been heading towards disaster my whole life. So I don't know that now is any different.
Someone once mentioned that Revelations doesn't mean the end of the world. It just means a paradigm shift of such monumental proportions. So you think we're almost there, that we're in Revelations. Okay, there's no hairy demons right now, but we're getting toward it.
Well, entropy is the absolute law of the universe, right? Everything falls apart. And we are all on multiple catastrophic paths at all times. It's up to us to choose which ends up being our eventual demise. We can keep putting it off. There's always going to be an end, but we can avoid certain ends and keep avoiding certain ends for as long as we can. And at some point we will give up and say, nope, this is the one we can't not do.
I would think in a more positive way. I would take the
thank you.
I would take this concept about the relationship between human being and artificial intelligence as a way how, because right now those engineers are building them more like human. And I think that could be a counterpart about how we human can live our specialness and uniqueness outside when some substitutes try to replace us. So I feel like that's like an infuse to make us understand who we are more. And also, it might also, like a lot of you guys talk about capitalism. I'm from a different background, but probably you know more about that than myself. I cannot talk about capitalism too much, but I think all the flaws of construction is like the flaws or diseases in our body. And with some like emergency, like the pandemic or like a symptom, we can identify those problems, and we'll have doctors or we'll have family members to tell you like how we are going to take a long process to do those treatments and tests and find a better way to cure the body. Back
Yeah,
to my film, like
I
a
think
cure
that's
eventually.
amazing. That's a really beautiful way of looking at it. And I have a background as an artist, so I adopted Midjourney really early, and it struck me immediately with this AI as a way to like stare into the soul of humanity and like pull out something. And so Tina, with what you're saying, it just kind of reminds me like, well, maybe AI can be like a great mirror, and we can really look at ourselves in a way that we aren't able to do now. Like, what if AI reflects these things back at us and we just hear it in a way, and it resonates with us in a way that we can't if we just try to do it organically? You know, it's like your partner's like, hey, you have this really bad habit and you don't even realize it until someone brings it up to you. And then, with that awareness, you can do something with it. But I love that analogy that you shared about like, diagnosing what's wrong and trying to heal it. I hope AI can help us diagnose, can help us like see ourselves. Once we can see stuff and name it, I think then we can, figure out what next. So I really like that.
Interesting thing, there's a pagan philosophy that you don't cook when you're in a bad mood, because you are cooking the bad energy into your food. And it's interesting what you're saying, and Tina, you're taking the happy ending of it. When we create AI, yes, of course, we're incorporating our own flaws into it because we don't realize they're a flaw. Christopher, you're absolutely right at that. We don't realize they're a flaw. But Tina, I hope you're right. I hope that we find the good that we put into things.
Me too.
Yeah, to add up what Christopher said about how to know more about us, I think I remember a very popular science fiction animation series from Japan. It's called Ghost in the Shell, and it also adapted to feature film. And in Ghost in the Shell, it talks a lot about artificial intelligence and how emotionless they are, but how they are the best to execute those missions, but they are very emotionless. And I think the biggest difference right now we can still identify is like people share about love and share about like at some time maybe the best option is to complete the mission, but we'll compromise because we care about the other side and we care about love and peace, and we will step back and not do the things that harm the others. But right now the engineer cannot find a code to write about how to make AI understand. So I think we can still manage things with that, like, because we are human, we are so emotional. And I don't know if some engineer behind the screen hear this will think about how to write a code about love, but I think that's something we can think about in a positive way.
Right. I mean, that's the whole thing with like self-driving cars, right? Is they're programmed to, if they see they're potentially going to hit a bus full of people, or there's like two people on the sidewalk, they're programmed to go on the sidewalk and hit the people and like potentially kill those people because it knows it can definitely avoid potentially injuring a dozen people in a bus. But like the human aspect of that, we would maybe think about that differently and maybe put a little more stock in the people walking down the sidewalk who had nothing to do with the road, and they're now getting brought into this thing. And yeah, you can't, I don't know how you could program that. I won't say can't, because we've done a lot of crazy things with science, but yeah, that's definitely an element that humans have and our considerations that currently AIs can't really replicate.
And I
So
think you just came up with a new film, a new sci-fi film, right on the spot.
Oh no, now I'm gonna have to write it.
And you're absolutely right. Great minds think alike. I was thinking to myself, my goodness, a film about how to program love into something. Wow. Okay, that's for the future. Last thought that I want to give, and I'm hitting Shane at this because he dared to nod when I said about the good old days, and Kazuya because his film hits me where I live in the late 70s, early 80s.
Hit me.
I say to both of you, I say Jen also because I know you've been at conventions since Tom Baker had dark hair.
Yeah, a few.
Just a few.
A few.
From what you have seen, how have we changed since the days of Star Wars? How have we changed?
As people or as in movies and films?
Yes.
All of it. Okay. Well, we're less tactile, right? I mean, we're less tangible. We sort of exist here. This is us. And so like back in the day, whenever we used our imagination, we had to find whatever was just around us. And these days it's all zeros and ones. So I think that's the main way that we've changed, especially as artists these days. There's nothing to actually touch and create in front of us. It's all here for the most part. And of course, I romanticize the old days, so I try to sort of surround myself with it. But if I were to say how we have changed the most, as silly as it sounds, I would say we're less tangible.
Now I'm gonna throw you a curve with that. That
Yeah.
sounds bad, but
You say it's not bad?
It sounds bad.
Oh, yeah.
But let me ask you, how much more art are we now able to see because of these little screens, because of our phones, because of Zoom? I'm speaking to all of you, but my main bane of my existence lately is the fact that I failed math in college. So please don't ask me to calculate time zones.
Well, I don't mean to cut you off. I'm with you. And art, of course, is expression, and expression can exist wherever, as long as you can see it and you can feel it. So in that way, I suppose there's really not it may be better now as far as artistic expression. But for me, I'll always kind of romanticize what you can touch, like what's actually around us instead of what is simulated on a computer.
I would love if it's a hybrid of that somewhere. We have all of this great art, but we have to come together as a community to watch it. So that would be really be it. Jen, how about you? I know you've been playing in this ball game as long as I have. So, well, actually a little shorter, but nonetheless long enough. How have we changed? How have you seen the change?
Well, I'm gonna kind of tend to agree with you, Shane, in a way. I think that people, even though the technology is making us, in a way, more interactive, we're less interactive personally. We're lacking the personal touch. As someone who worked with children up until a year ago in the school systems, it was all about this, all about it. The little kids would bring their devices and the heads would be down. You ride public transportation these days, the heads are down. You go to dinner at somebody's house and you sit around like this. So I think life is less personal. It's more advanced technologically. And I love that I could put on my VR headset and go walk around the Louvre. Because I don't know when I'll get to Paris, if ever. But nothing would replace me seeing the Mona Lisa up close and personally.
Now, if everyone would have your philosophy, we'd be in good shape. Kazuya, you're writing about Star Wars. You're writing about the era of Star Wars. How have we changed? What's different now?
Sorry. Sorry, I can understand. Sorry.
From then to now, from Star Wars to now, how's it
あ
different?
あ、スター・ウォーズ、スター・ウォーズ and now, what change? Do you mean? What I can understand your question. Sorry.
Well, you
Um,
know what? I have a follow-up question. So you were making movies
Mhm.
when you were, a young boy, and
Mhm.
you just made a movie now.
Mhm.
Was it easier to make the movie now with the
Mhm.
technology that you had?
Mhm.
What was different about you making the movie then, based and compared to making the movie now with the technology that exists for you today?
My childhood amateur film is separate commercial film.
Mhm.
So because 8mm film is different from 35 minute film, but
Yeah.
now amateur movie is same commercial film because digital technology is same. So I made my film low budget and few people, but I can screen big movie movie theater. I think the different from my childhood and now is movie. We can we can make movie for theater, amateur filmmakers and low cost filmmakers. This is evolution, I think. Do you know?
Completely,
Yes.
completely. Jen, thank you. Excellent, excellent work. It really fascinates me talking to all of you. I've worked in the theater for most of my life, and part of the reason that I've been exclusively in the theater is because I thought it was just too hard to be in the movies. Because when I was a kid, to be up on the silver screen there, that was quite an effort. You had to go to California. You had to go through a certain thing. Nowadays, it's so much easier to be a TV star. And so the accessibility that you're all talking about is definitely there. But as I look at it now, okay, here we all are TV stars, but we're in our own homes. There's no one next to us to enjoy this wealth with us. So yeah, that's a really interesting thing to think about. The accessibility, the freedom, the joy and imagination, but can we then find time to come together as people and sit in a room and say, what'd you think?
I think, again, it all comes down to choice. What I was saying earlier was that, yeah, we're always on a path to destruction and we keep choosing to do better. My idea isn't one of negativity. It's one of hope. We can do better. We can choose to be better. We can choose to be together. Yeah, we all watch things separately in our home, but the democratization of filmmaking means that all of us who don't have the money to pay hundreds of thousands of dollars for film can make things digitally for almost nothing. How many of us would be making movies if we still had to pay tens of thousands of dollars just for the film? And we have more film festivals and we have more independent films because of it. And that's fantastic. But we have to make these choices. We have to be mindful.
That's exactly what I was saying. Thank you. You put it so much better than I did. Thank you all very much. This was wonderful. I always come away with this like increased in knowledge and feeling like I'm a better person from speaking to brilliant artists such as yourselves. I wish you all the best. Please keep in touch. Send us screeners so that we can get your films reviewed and shown to communities all over, that we make the choice that we can show these to everyone in the community of Boston Sci-Fi and beyond. Thank you all so much. I look forward to meeting many of you at the event, and here's to success with your movies. Thanks for being here today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.